Hey everyone, welcome to the Trendcrusher podcast. I'm Peter K, aka Trendcrusher. Yep, it's been a while, and this is the second episode being released this week. I had to do it because I had a really great conversation with somebody, and yeah, I didn't want to keep it under the wraps for much longer. I had a chat with Virtuoso bassist Linus. You may remember him from his time in Obscura. He's also in Obsidious now and Alkaloid, and he even released a solo album recently. The album's called Tulpa. I really enjoyed listening to it, and I was very curious to know the entire process of him putting together, the core musicians that performed on the album, but also the guest musicians, and just, his entire approach towards music and why he decided to release a solo album now. So, all that and more in my chat with him. Here we go. Hi, Linus. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Peters. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I have to say, right? I mean, we're talking for a very specific reason, but from our pre chat that we just had, I've realized this has been a long time in the making because there's so many different bands and so many different people that you actually know that we know in common. So, yeah, I guess I'm really glad we finally managed to do this.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. I guess I've been around a lot, but and you've been as well. So yeah, we had more than 20 minutes of pre-talk. Was very enjoyable already. Looking
Okay,
forward to the rest of the talk now.
awesome. So, it's been a few days, I mean, for everyone tuned in since the release of your debut solo album, Tulpa.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
before we kind of, peel the onion behind it, let's just get a quick reaction. How does it feel now that the album's finally out?
It feels like a relief, to be honest, because you can imagine if you make a record alone, then there's a lot of work around the release. So yeah, that I wanted to have a moment where I want to sit down and like say, okay, this is what I worked on for a lot of time now. It's out now. I will have a glass of wine or a beer now and have a good, I don't know, a good dinner with my girlfriend or something. That still needs to happen. But yeah, it's like a relief that it's out now, and it's a big relief that also the reactions are very positive about it, which is also, of course, something you never know. If you work long on something, you have like at least I can say that about me. I lose the objective perspective on what I work on. So I have no idea what people think about that kind of music, and you're not aware of your own influences, and then people suddenly start to compare your songs with other artists, and it's very interesting for me to hear those comparisons. And like very often I heard now decapitated and stuff like that that I would have never associated with the record, and it's really very interesting for me. So it's a very like it's positive stress I'm having recently, but it's like yeah, it's really really great that I'm very happy I made this record.
So I'm glad you kind of talked about this because, actually, to be honest, I was actually surprised that you released a solo album. And when I first got the news of it, because you've been part of so many different projects that I've enjoyed, but hearing, just your work, I was very curious to know what it would kind of sound like, right? And would it be like a meld of what I was going to have heard so far? Would it be something completely different, right? So that's why I was very curious. So take me back actually to the start. When did all of this kind of start for you as a process? Was it something that you had aspired to do for a while and then finally got time to do, or take me through that?
Yeah, I actually never thought about making a solo record. I never had the inner I don't know. I never had the big wish of releasing once a solo record in my life, but different circumstances. I mean, I guess you need to see my career a little bit in the context. So when I was younger, like about 19, I just played in every kind of band I could play in, so just to gain experience. And this led me then to one amazing contact that I got back then to Non-Euclid, which was a band I joined, where this where the main songwriter was a classical composer, and suddenly I was playing with a progressive metal band with an orchestra, which was an amazing experience for me. And this songwriter that I'm talking about is now the singer of Alkaloid also. So this is like, I still work, like that was the basis for all I'm doing now at this time back then. And then this led me also to the contact to Obscura. And Obscura was really my main band for 9 years. It was Steffen Kummerer and me, we were like the company of the band for most of the time that I was in the band. And so it was not only writing music a lot, I was also organizing a lot of things around the band, pushing it. It was really, and we were touring intensely all over the globe. And so this took a lot of time, and I always had some side projects. Alkaloid was there, and I never had time to write for Alkaloid because I was too busy with Obscura and other things in my daily life. And then at some point, I decided with the whole lineup to leave Obscura. And then suddenly I was at a point where I could reorganize myself and say, okay, what do I want to do now? And then all of us that left Obscura, we made a new band called Obsidious. And so I have like those two main bands now. It's Obsidious and Alkaloid, but both bands are how can you explain that the best way? We want to tour a lot and we want to do a lot, but it's very hard to build up a band with people in the age of like mid-30s and 30s, because nobody wants to play 5 months a year and sleep on floors of some shitty bands anymore. So yeah, it's just more hard, and you have more financial responsibilities and stuff. So it's just a little bit more hard to build up those bands. So out of that nature already, like less things happened than happened with Obscura. And then I was glad that I have this 6-string fretless bass sound that I developed over the years in Obscura. So this became my thing somehow. And then I was at the point when I left Obscura that I had a name in the metal scene because of like being the bass weirdo, I guess. And that gave me a lot of session jobs, which is very cool. I just play with the Spirit as a session bassist that I toured in May with, and I play with Beyond the Black, which is a German symphonic metal band that has a big name here in Europe. We headlined the Wacken stage this year, and I fly with them to Australia next month. It's really, really, really cool, and I'm glad with it, like my career led me to. And in this redefining process, when I left Obscura and I found Obsidious, there were a couple of songs already that like when I was still in Obscura, we thought about going into new musical directions. So I like started to write songs in different directions, and the same happened then with Obsidious. When we had to define a new band, of course, I tried, okay, what could it be? And I tried to write in different directions, and there was a certain atmosphere in some compositions that I had that didn't fit to anything. Like it just didn't fit to Alkaloid, Obsidious, or anything. So I had suddenly 4 or 5 songs, and I thought like, damn it, it would be bad. Like I wouldn't like those songs would just go nowhere. And then we had the pandemic, and a couple of evenings I was enjoying myself just sitting here in my home studio making songwriting. You know, opening a beer, sitting down, making songwriting. Suddenly you're in that concentration tunnel and that creative flow, and you listen to a melody and you're very deep diving into this creative world. And that's what I enjoyed so much with those songs especially. So I worked on those songs, and I thought, okay, I want to make something out of this. And this was actually the reason why I wanted to make the solo record.
Wow. So basically, if I have to ask you this, and I know normally a lot of people ask this question at the end, but how
Yeah.
much material do you just like have unreleased so far?
There's not a lot. I really try to use all material I have. Of course, there's always some rich, I try to work on main ideas, and when the main ideas are not strong, then I don't use them anymore immediately. Or if I work on an arrangement, I try to find a riff that like to fill in a certain part. If that's not good, I try another one. So there are a lot of parts that I don't use, but if I work already a full song out, it rarely happens that I kick away the whole song, because I normally don't work on something that I like where that I don't see something in it. And sometimes you get stuck with an idea that you cannot finish a song with it, and those songs I use for I change them a little and I make bass exercises out of them that I sell on my website then.
Okay.
Which happen, there are like the Planetary 7 and the Bass AI a bass book that you can buy on my website that is full of those little compositions that are just 1.5 minutes long, of riffs that I like, but I couldn't make a song out of it. But I kind of wrote a bass line on it that I thought it would be fine for an exercise for bass playing,
Oh wow.
like
Actually,
mini
that's a very
compositions.
that's a very interesting way of kind of using your material, right? But
Yeah, I felt like it's a pity if that goes away. Those ideas that I actually liked, and it's also good for social media. Like I record those ideas, and so I like have my little compositions, can use them in a bass video that I can present on social media and make promotion for the bass course. And that's if that would be my main living, I would be also fine with it, I guess. No, I love playing live, but
but yeah, oh my God, there's
I
actually
enjoy
so
that.
much to talk to you about just the other side of music, right? But we're gonna stick with Tulpa just a bit more.
Sure.
Uh, so take me through that process, right? You had these few songs. Uh,
Mhm.
from there, how did you go about kind of like creating the album that we're now hearing? But I definitely want to hear how did you kind of put together the entire band, so to say, or even extended kind of musicians that performed on the album?
Yeah, maybe I could tell a little bit more about the songwriting process, because I find that like I worked methodically in the last years to optimize the process for me. I'm a very German person, planning and organizing, and I have my methods on working. And I cannot write music on a guitar because I'm just not a good guitar player. And also with my bass in my hand, I always got stuck in the same, I don't know, playing routines. You always play the same kind of riffs where your hands go most of the time anyway. And so I write in software. And this time I took the software part, like I went first from Guitar Pro and then to Cubase. And in Cubase, I had a lot of simulators for other instruments this time. So it was really, I had like, of course, a drum machine, but also simulated guitar for the first time. That's something I learned from the Obsidious singer, how he uses like a real, like a simulated guitar that really sounds very close to how it sounds in the end. And then I even had a death metal vocal plugin that I used to like have rhythmical patterns that I put in the song to create the song as close as it can get to the actual end result. So I really have an idea if an idea sounds good in the end or not, because sometimes I had the problem that I write something in Guitar Pro and I give it to a guitarist and he said, yeah, that I get what you want to express on Guitar Pro with this, but on a real guitar that sounds completely different. And then like I didn't want to run into the problem anymore, especially not on a solo project. On a band context, not a big problem, but if I wanted to work with somebody that worked for me, I wanted to give him like a really concrete image of what he should record, and like I wanted him to understand what sound aesthetic I had in mind. So I had this pre-production was that it was really far, and then I reached out to different musicians. I worked with Hannes Grossmann on drums. As I explained, as I talked already in our pre-talk, he's a very close friend of mine. We live both in the same city. We used to play in Obscuria together. We play in Alkaloid together. I play bass on all his solo records. It's like also on session musician jobs, we do a lot together. So yeah, you know how important the rhythm group is for a bassist. So yeah, that was like just logic. And he has a studio here in Nuremberg in Bavaria, Germany. So also that made sense to ask him to produce the record. He also produces Alkaloid and other bands, and he's doing a great job there. So I had already a person that I can trust, that I knew, okay, he will also understand my sound aesthetic that I had in mind. and I know he's a great drummer, and he's already a person that I can rely on. So I have like a factor of, I don't know, feeling safe there. But I also wanted, like, I very often work with the same people again and then again and again. So I wanted to have some fresh faces, and then I worked with Ian Way, who's a guitarist from Canada. He was a recommendation of Christian Münzner, and he's an amazing guitarist. He plays for Surreption, and which is a crazy great band. If you don't know them, check them out. And
Yeah.
then I asked Aaron Huma, a guitarist that is a mix of a tech death and a thrash metal guitarist. He plays in Annihilator also. So like that mix made complete sense for me, because I find that my solo record is not like a typical death metal record. It has a lot of influences in me that came through different genres that I went to as a fan when I was younger. So yeah, so that connection made sense for me. And then I went again for the vocals. I went for the Obsidious singer, who is also a studio, and for him it's just I don't know. It was very easy for him to record all this stuff, and he's this super talented, skilled singer who can sing in a lot of styles. So that made also a lot of sense to ask him. And that's the lineup. My girlfriend plays piano, so I also could include her in some parts. That was also very nice. And then I had a lot of guest guitarists who are people that I met on the road or on festivals and or online, and those people played solos for me on the record, which I very much love, and that all gives it like a fresh sound and doesn't make it sound, that's at least what I think, like a typical solo record where like if just one person composed, often it sounds very boring after a couple of songs because it's always the same style, and that freshens up the sound a little bit, I find.
All right, Linus, we're going to take a break from all the stories about Tulpa, and let's play a song and give some context to all our listeners. So, which song of Tulpa should we play and why?
All right, let's start with the second single of Tulpa. It's called Our Soul Set Sail. And it's very special to me because I received a very special bass from Ibanez right at the ending of the recordings of this record. And on this bass, I play a very special bass from Ibanez that has a steel fretboard. It's not only a fretless bass, it has a complete steel fretboard. And that has a very distinguished sound. And I love the sound of that bass. You hear it like in melodic, but also in a heavy way. It's very prominent in that song. So yeah, I hope you like that one.
All right, so here's Our Soul Set Sail. Okay, that was Our Soul Set Sail. I'm still talking to Linus, and let's dive more into the album because I'm really curious to know, especially about your entire process, right? Because you talked about having Guitar Pro and then kind of using various instruments, including a vocoder. Uh, so, at what point was the songs when you shared it with everyone, like Hans or Javier and all of them? Was it like completely finished and you kind of said, okay, here's what it's going to be? Or like, do some of them have room to kind of write their own parts or improvise in there? How does that work?
Yeah, I would say the composition was there like 95%. So like the other guys didn't compose, but they of course added their own musical character, which was the most important part. So Hannes has a very own way of drumming, and he changed some beats, of course, that I like. I'm not a drummer, and he has, of course, way better ideas in some parts. Of course, he changed something here and there. But yeah, that's what it is about. Why you should work always with good musician on a record is because they have a very own musical character, and if you just I don't know if I would have recorded the guitar alone on my I don't know my bar for bar, which is something that is not very untypical in that kind of genre, then it wouldn't have had the same intensity because somebody who is good on guitar can play the part and can play it so relaxed that he can focus on the actual sound of the part, so he can like put his whole character into it and play it with like full confidence, and that makes a huge difference. And people that develop their own sounds over years, that's something that's really important to me, and that's what they delivered on that record, in my opinion. Especially Hannes and Ian did a very great job. There is this song called Sarah, for example. I wrote a melody in the beginning, and the phrasing of Ian on the guitar melody is just very unique and gave the song just a very special note on top. I really like that a lot.
So one of the things I want to kind of go back to when you mentioned it, when you were talking about just the selection of who would be part of the album, is
Mm.
you didn't want to go for your typical death metal sound, right? Or even like, if I may double tap on that, the tech death metal sound that like is kind of
Yeah.
known for, right? Uh, so while you were kind of composing and putting together and even had all these people in mind, was there a specific sound that you had in mind that you wanted to kind of work with and what the album should overall sound like? Hence, you got everyone involved.
I mean, I'm not an enemy of tech death at all, and it was not
Hmm.
an intention to not make tech death anymore. I actually think there are a couple of songs that are, like the second song. I think it's the second song. You see how great I normally I record myself. That's a song called Axiom Architect.
Hmm.
It's actually the second song of the record, yeah, and that's a typical tech death song. So I still love that style, and also like bringing virtuosity into metal is something I really enjoy, and playing fretless bass in metal is also a very tech death typical kind of tool. But those are all things I enjoy very much, and that I can bring confidence with because I did that for a very long time.
Hmm.
So it was not my goal to go against that, but um, in the composing way, it was different for me because I wanted to try other things there. In the past, I was always trying to avoid typical song structures,
Hmm.
just because I thought, okay, it's boring to the ear because that's what people are used to. And I kind of changed my thoughts to there is a reason why there are typical song structures, and I want to take the challenge of making the songs interesting with that song structure, and like to really try not to make a lot of like complex transitions, but really go from one part to another and focus on good riffs and melodies, which is something I enjoy a lot of music that I listen to. So it was just like a different mindset that I went to, and that's I don't know, writing the songs that I had at the beginning. They were had all the typical song structure. Thought okay, let's write a whole album in that kind of feel. And it doesn't mean that they are very commercial songs,
Hmm.
I would say, but I think they are way more commercial to what I do normally. Maybe, at least let's say they're more straightforward. And I said that in a lot of interviews. When people make a bass solo record, it's often like
Mm.
focused super much on the bass, and people go super wild, especially on just focus on the instrument, and they break free from all the barriers that they normally have in the bands. And for me, it was the complete opposite. It's like in my bands that I play in, I always try to break the boundaries, and there we do extreme stuff. So I actually had the complete opposite idea. I wanted to, okay, let's make something that's a little bit more straight this time. Like that was my challenge. I really had the opposite direction that other people would go to. So maybe it's a little bit unexpected to listen to the record, and it's not a crazy fusion record.
So I have to be honest, right? And I'm glad you put this out. That's what I was talking about, right? Like I was expecting a bass led record. So when it kind of cued in and then I heard vocals and I was like, wait, what? And then there was the next song, there were vocals, and I was like, okay, this is not the kind of album I was kind of expecting, right? And then I kind of went into, okay, who's part of the entire album, and kind of realized that, okay, you've got certain musicians playing across. So this is, in a way, traditionally what is seen as the band structure. But
Absolutely.
again, it's so different, right? Because it's again your mind, and you have the kind of, if I may use the term, the conductor you're right for the entire music, so to
Mhm.
say. So that was very refreshing and different for me to see. But I have to ask you, right? I mean, like, considering when I'm looking at the list, and we just talked just about the musicians that have played on all the songs, but you did
Yeah.
have a lot of guest musicians also. Uh,
Yeah.
is this when the German side of you kind of came in? Because you kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, where it's kind of like project management, precise. How did you kind of manage all of that? Because, like, trust me, as someone who does this for a living in a day job,
Mm.
it's organized chaos, is how I put it. Is that how you would describe it? The entire process?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Working with musicians, especially, is of course there were some moments that were really tough, and where I thought like, oh God, okay, this kills my own time management now. But still, the big benefit in this case was that I had absolutely no time pressure. Nobody expected the solo record and waited for it, so I really took all the time that I had. And since Hannes has his studio here, I didn't have that typical thing that you normally have with the studio, that you book it for a certain time frame, and then I don't know, I would need to fly to Finland to go into that in that studio to meet and then I need to book a place where I stay for 2 weeks to mix the record with it. It was not like that. So when Hannes had some time, he mixed a song, and yeah, and he was very flexible, so to say. So it was not a big deal to postpone the recordings here and there. He just did it when he had time, so that was really comfortable. And some people I asked for guest solos that actually said first yes, and then they couldn't do it in the end. Stuff like that happened as well, but. In the end, still, and people also like went over their comfort zone and said, okay, and I said, okay, hey, the guitar recordings were planned until this day, so the singer can sing in his free time. Can you like, uh, uh, um, yeah, so like everybody was very flexible and adapted also to my time schedule, and I think that's what I'm also so happy about making this record, because I was surrounded by good people, and that is something that's an experience that I had through the years, that I can filter very well who I want to work with and who not. And
Yeah.
and that is something that you surround yourself with good people, and that's the amazing part here. That maybe that's the best part of the whole experience of the solo record, to see that I have great musicians around me that are nice people, and also that the people who listen to the records, I've seen now in the last years a lot of different scenes, and the scene of this death metal scene and bass player scene that follows me is really a scene that I like itself, that I can identify with very well, and I really like it a lot. So it doesn't feel to me like something, okay, I need to have this product. I sell it to people. Here you go. Now please label, sell it to the rest. It's really that, I don't know, that what social media also bring, that connections to fans and stuff, and to I don't even like that fan, to other music fans that listen to my stuff. That is really something I enjoy. I have a Discord server now, for example, that is very active. It doesn't have 1,000 people, but I don't know, 150 or something. And it's the vibe that is there is so positive, and not like in a lot of other places in the internet where people are full of hate and just arguing all the time. And this is just a very positive place. People like to share good music. They talk about gear. I also learned something there. It's I don't know. That's like the world that I have built around me now. That's like a good moment to reflect now, to see that.
Okay, so I think it's time to kind of, before we flip to the other side of releasing a solo album, let's play one more song from the album.
Right.
Uh, which one would you want us to play? Maybe something that you feel, maybe a song with a story behind it. How about that?
Yeah, there is that the song "King of Hearts," which was the very first single of my solo record, and there is a big concept about the lyrics of the album also, and the video of "King of Hearts" that I made myself, by the way, because of financial reason mostly. But that tells the story of the book that influenced me on the lyrics, which is a book from 1873, I think, and it's written about an alchemist who produced 10 artificial creatures, and every song on my record is about one of those 10 creatures. And the first one that I introduced is, and the whole story about it is featured in the video of King of Hearts, which is obviously the song about the king.
Okay, nice. So here it is.
To a throne on the verge of condition, nothing to have control of.
Okay, that was King of Hearts, and I'm still talking to Linus about his solo album Tulpa. Now, I want to talk about the different aspect of releasing a solo album, which is the promotion, the marketing, the business side of it. Now,
Yeah.
typically, if you look at it, when you have a band, you split up the responsibilities. Each one takes a different thing or kind of focus area is different, right? But
Mhm.
when it's your solo album, it's all you, right? Uh,
Yeah.
so once the creative part is done, once all of, say, the recording is done, there's still, dealing with the label, the promotion, and all of that. Uh, can you talk a bit about that? I mean, especially considering like you just spoke about social media also, right? Uh, what's that journey been like from you? What's some of the learnings that you've had from that you would like to share?
Mm. Um, well, first of all, one of the benefits of having a solo record is that you also save a lot of time that you don't need to discuss with other people about certain topics. And in that time, you can be productive about things. So that also helps time wise. So especially about like the image and marketing ideas, those kind of things are often topics where at least if you have a group of, I don't know, 4 or 5 people, which you have typically in a band, that's always something where one person disagrees and you need a lot of time to um, find a compromise. And like democracy takes a lot of time, so that's something that you don't need to deal with when you make a solo record. So you have an idea and you just do it. That's was an interesting learning effect. And then I was very lucky with working with a label. At some point I took that decision to work with a label. First, I actually thought I would make a independent release, but I realized that, like you said, there's a lot of work where I don't have experience in, and then was not super interesting in getting into finding a good PR company that brings me interviews and reviews online, like finding the right company who would print a vinyl and a CD. And there are a lot of risks if you work there with somebody who's not a good a connection, then it can have a really bad ending. So I was very lucky to find Sven from AOP Records, which is normally a label that releases more black metal oriented bands.
Yeah, yeah.
And I met him through my session work in The Spirit. That they also on AOP Records, and I just showed him the record and asked for his opinion if he could imagine to work with me on this, and he was very into it and liked the record, fortunately. And then he was really, really pushing things together with me. So he had the right contact for making the booklet, finishing the booklet, for the right factory for making CDs, vinyls. He had all those contacts that I was talking about, and that saved so much time.
Yeah.
And that really helped me. That's something that's am really, really helpful. And he was also helpful because he was also thankful because I like the marketing topic is I'm not very much of a marketing expert, but I was always aware of the importance of it. So I listen to a lot of podcasts about music marketing. I have newsletters. I used always to go to music marketing workshops and conferences and those kind of things. And there I collected a lot of ideas that I wanted to use for marketing, and that I then actually used. And that I think that's also something that AOP Records was happy because I had actually a concept already. I had of how I want to promote things, and social media is something I actively work with in the last couple of years. And I do a lot of Instagram, and so yeah, that was just like I just combined those worlds, and then made a lot of sense. Yeah, and then I wanted to share also like something that I made very different to what I do with my bands. Like you know how it is. Like sometimes there was something I always wanted to do but never could because always one person in the band was not comfortable with it, at least. and it was to reveal the whole process of how to make a record. And when I was young, like about, I don't know, when I was 15, 16, and I tried to learn bass, I always, and you know, you have your idols, Iron
Yeah.
Maiden and all Metallica, all the bands. You start with that, and you see how they write songs, and you want to, like, you want to get step in the footsteps and learn how to write songs and play. You want to do what they do.
Yeah.
And then you go to music school and they teach you how to play Iron Maiden, but they don't teach you how to write a song. And that was never something that was taught on any, not on the music college, never it was taught anywhere. And I was desperately searching for guidance how to write songs and like how to approach this. And um, I made, like, I had to go through this whole process of learning it over the long years through different contexts. Also, the whole what you just said, like learning about marketing also, and like making a record has so many, especially nowadays where social media has such a big importance and labels are weaker than they used to be, at least the independent labels. And in this time you have to know about so many things that it's very easy to get lost in all of this. So I worked on a video course that I offer on my website that really guides from like the first moment of how do I find inspiration, how do you get started with an idea to make a record, to the composition process. I really show everything. I even show like how I spoke in the lyric as a like in the guide track where I speak like the rhythm of the vocals into the pre-production. All those little steps I shared there because they was important to me. So like that my experience can, and since I'm a very methodical person, that I thought that could help people. That's also something I finally could do without being, I don't know. Yeah. And like I said, I don't think everybody could do it because it's very hard to describe creative processes. But since, like I said, I have a very methodic way of doing it, I thought I share this not as a blueprint of how to make a record, but like this is how I did it. Maybe that can help. Yeah.
Okay. And if you're curious and you're wondering what Linus is talking about, well, it's called Behind the Glass, a personal part to album creation. I'm going to leave a link to that in the show notes. It's right on his website. But
That's very
trust
nice.
me,
Thanks
there's
for sharing.
so much to talk to you about, but I have to kind of touch a few things, right? And I have to be honest. One of the things I was also kicked to talk to you about is there was a new Alkaloid record out,
Mhm.
and there's so much different music that you kind of work on. So, what's some of the updates you can give us on at least some of the projects, live touring, maybe recording? What can you share about those?
Um, yeah, like you just said, with Alkaloid, we just released a new record in September, and it's been 5 or 6 years between the last two records. So that was really something important for us to make, and we worked a lot on this record, and it turned out to be a very crazy one. It's called Numen. And it's very different. It's also the first Alkaloid record where I had time to contribute to the songwriting. There is one song that I contributed to. It sounds a bit more darker than the ones before, and I'm very proud of that record. We're gonna play next week live in the Netherlands, and we start to plan some festivals next year. Other than that, I start to make songwriting with Obsidious for the next album, and I do a lot of session work. I record stuff from home, but depending on where you listen to this podcast from, maybe you can come and say hello. I'm on tour in November in Australia and New Zealand with Beyond the Black. I have some single shows in Germany with The Spirit in December, and in April, there is a big European tour with Beyond the Black as well. Yeah, it would be great to see you all there.
Wow. That sounds like you've got your year planned, man. I mean, like some of us are figuring out like what we'll complete in the next 100 odd days. That was the latest thing, like trending on social media, like 100 days left in the year. You've got like April planned out.
Yeah, it's like it's really crazy. It's like I think that's because of Corona. That's like the event scene starts to plan very early in advance now. So I right now I get a lot of requests for the summer festivals next year. That and most of them are full already. It's really it's crazy. Yeah, and yeah, if you want to, if you're interested in what I'm doing with bands, you can also follow on my newsletter, by the way.
Oh, nice.
And we have a very big, if it works, a very cool orchestra project again coming up with Alkaloid next year, which would be amazing. But that's not really final if that will happen yet. So, but yeah, if that happens, that will be one absolute highlight next year for me
Awesome,
personally.
awesome. So there's definitely a lot to look forward from you, but I have to leave you with at least like this question, right? And it's considering you've been kind of a metalhead since you were 14. Uh, if you have to go back to that 14-year-old self, right? Uh,
Yes.
what would you say or think or do differently? Or there was nothing you'd change?
You mean in my career or my
Yeah,
perspective of?
career,
Okay.
I would say, or I don't know. It's
Yeah,
it's
I'm.
open.
Yeah, I'm a very reflective person, and I actually thought about this year a couple of times because I went with 17 to Wacken Open Air the first time, and it meant so much to me to be in this metal world and surrounded suddenly by people that are like me.
Hmm.
And this year I played on the same stage now for people, and that was like very magical for me, like to like I don't know, it was like the peak of one peak of my career, and I was trying to play for the 14 for the 17-year-old again, and that made me a lot of things. Like after I achieved this year, I thought about like the metal scene in general and the young me, and I think like what I would do different is that I would take things way less serious. I
Hmm.
think that the metal scene is very it's aware that it's something special, but sometimes it takes itself too seriously. Like the scenes that hate each other, like the power metal band laughs about a black metal band, and the black metal band feels disgusted about power metal. Those kind of things are weird, and it's a very sexist scene also, and a very conservative scene actually, which doesn't fit to rock and roll at all. So that's something. And then when I was young, I also was very into that. Oh, I don't know, rough metalhead. That was really like in the Manowar attitude of if you don't like my music, then you're not my friend, kind of thing. It's and that was really, really not what metal is about, and not what a family like the metal family is about. Yeah, and what I learned through all those years traveling the world with bands is that it's very special that like if you listen to metal, which is really not a lot of people around you in your I don't know in your family or your friends that not a lot of people might understand what you feel when you listen to the music, and then you go on the other side of the planet and there is somebody from India who understands exactly the feeling of one song or he has other emotions about it, and sharing that and like, talking about that is one of the most beautiful things that there are, and like the magic of music is just very very amazing and not appreciated enough. I think people talk how football and like sports connect the world. I think music has a way better role where their bands don't play against each other like football teams and like I want Germany to win. No, like it's just about positivity and nothing else. That sounded very hippie what I just said, but
Nah, nah, that totally makes sense. I mean, like that's a great way to kind of wrap up this episode where we're literally sitting in Germany and India and kind of talking about this, and we have something that we're both passionate about, which is metal. So, yeah,
yeah.
thanks so much for sharing all of that, Linus. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for making this interview with me.
If you enjoyed my chat with Linus, head over to the show notes. I've left the link to his Bandcamp and also his website where you can buy the album, and also the making of the album that I spoke about earlier. Also, keep an eye out for Alkaloid and what they're up to. I love the teaser that he left in towards the end of the episode. But that's all for me. Not sure how regularly I'm going to be releasing an episode in the next few weeks or months, but just keep an eye out as always on my social media. It's Trendcrusher on Facebook, Instagram, or if you want to get in touch, just hit me up, trendcrusher@gmail.com. I'll see all of you very soon. Cheers.